Wildlife Views, we have the story of the long journey those fish you catch in our urban lakes have to take to get there. Next, we'll show the lengths that some agencies will take to protect raptors from dangerous power lines. But first, we travel south with biologists who are helping in the recovery of a very endangered species, the Sonoran pronghorn. Known as prairie ghosts because they are so elusive, Sonoran pronghorn almost became ghosts in the Arizona desert. Even though the pronghorn is the fastest land mammal in North America, capable of speeds up to 60 miles an hour, the endangered Sonoran pronghorn may not be swift enough to outrun the threat of extinction. Thousands of Sonoran pronghorn, a smaller, more diminutive subspecies of the West's widespread American pronghorn, once roamed the Sonoran Desert in Arizona, California, and Mexico. Then came European settlers. By the early 1900s, hunting, competition with domestic livestock, and extensive habitat alteration had drastically reduced Sonoran pronghorn numbers. In 1967, the Sonoran pronghorn was listed as endangered, but despite that designation and the protections it afforded, the Sonoran pronghorn continued to slide rapidly toward extinction.
This is an endangered species and perhaps recognized as one of the most endangered species in the United States.
The Sonoran pronghorn was actually first listed in 1967 because of its low numbers, and there was an original list with about 20 species on it, and it was also included in the 1973 Act, which is what most people think of for the Endangered Species Act.
The Sonoran pronghorn is now confined to slim fragments of its former range in the United States and Mexico. In the decade between 1992 and 2002, the southwestern Arizona population, the only one left in the United States, plummeted from 179 to an estimated 21 animals.
There's actually 5 different races of pronghorn. Most people are familiar with the American pronghorn, which is found up north, up in Wyoming and Montana, and there's hundreds of thousands of those up there. But the Sonoran pronghorn is one of the 5 subspecies, and in the United States here we only have approximately 75 of those. Although that was last year, we're hoping that the counts this year will show around 100 animals.
The fate of fawns has been particularly dismal. During many years of the past decade, not a single fawn has survived. An alarm call for any species, a potential death rattle for the Sonoran pronghorn. In the face of these dire circumstances, immediate steps have been taken by governments and conservation groups alike to stabilize and recover the Sonoran pronghorn population in Arizona. In the desert, water is king. With it, you survive. Without it, you perish. History has taught us that the Sonoran pronghorn is no exception. Conservation groups have come to the rescue of the Sonoran pronghorn by developing water catchments strategically located across the desert.
A number of the recovery projects that we're working on, for example, forage enhancement and water development, require us to solicit and use volunteers to help us actually construct and maintain these projects. And without groups like the Arizona Antelope Foundation, the Yuma Valley Rod and Gun Club, we wouldn't be nearly as successful or far along with these recovery projects as we would be otherwise.
Another important step was to construct a breeding enclosure to give the captive Sonoran pronghorn better odds of survival.
We began this project 3 years ago, after the drought of 2002, in which 80% of the wild herd in Arizona died. We brought pronghorn in from the wild and also from Mexico.
Those initial Sonoran pronghorn were placed into the 640-acre breeding enclosure.
And we began breeding them in captivity and basically controlling the availability of food and water and removing predators from the captive breeding pen in the hopes of having increased survival of young.
One of the challenges associated with breeding programs is what to do with excess males. Like most wild animals, the males will fight for dominance, for the chance to mate. With an animal so highly endangered, we can't take the chance that a single one will be injured during a breeding battle. Better to release some from the enclosure to protect all. The excess males can supplement the wild population since they're no longer needed or necessary inside the pen.
We're attempting to release the first Sonoran pronghorn raised in captivity back into the wild.
But wild animals can't be herded like cattle, so more direct measures need to be taken to selectively remove target animals while causing minimal disturbance to the rest of the herd.
We're capturing the males by using a tranquilizer gun and using a drug that basically immobilizes the animal.
What we're using to immobilize these animals is a narcotic or an opiate drug that is a brand new drug on an experimental basis in the United States called thiofentanyl. Thiofentanyl is a very rapid-acting opiate that will put these animals under a state of immobilization very rapidly, and really the drug of choice for pronghorn antelope. En route to the recovery pen, we maintained an acceptable level of anesthesia with a drug called ketamine, which is routinely used in wildlife medicine.
And that allows us to remove the animal from the pen, fit it with a radio collar, take body measurements, assess the general health of the animal, and later to be released into the wild. We're using basically a disposable capture dart. It's propelled by a 22 blank cartridge, and we lure the animals in close to our blind with, supplemental feed.
I think I got a shot. Good shot. We had a very predictable immobilization with this animal. Once the animal was down, a team of veterinarians then monitored and assessed that animal throughout the entire mobilization. We placed an IV catheter in a jugular vein. We monitored vital parameters including temperature, pulse oximetry, pulse, respiration, and the animal was transported to a recovery pen.
Water's keeping him cool. We're just trying to keep his temperature at a reasonable level while he's under anesthesia. These animals heat up very quickly. They have hollow hair, so they're very well insulated. When they heat up, it's hard for them to cool down. We're going to give him some vitamins just to give him a head start in the real world.
This is an absolutely brand new technique we're using to move these animals out of the pen. We'd like to have as many medical experts here as possible in order to help facilitate a successful procedure.
The capture and handling crew also included 3 highly respected wildlife veterinarians from across the globe.
Besides myself, we have Dr. Yvonne Cossain from the National University in Mexico City, who has extensive wildlife capture experience. Also Dr. Dave Kenny, who's a senior veterinarian at the Denver Zoo. I don't think we could have had a better immobilization. Last night, our immobilization went as predicted. The animal was very stable throughout the entire procedure, and we moved very quickly, very efficiently as a medical team and as a recovery team to facilitate this first release of a Sonoran pronghorn in the United States.
The following day, another male was captured using the same technique and released into the 5-acre holding pen. Once both animals were stabilized, the release crew opened a side of the enclosure pen, and the first Sonoran pronghorn raised in captivity in Arizona ran free across the desert.
Well, the hope is with this project that we'll be releasing pronghorn for about the next 7 years, and this will build the population up to where we can delist the species.
When trying to recover a species this far down on their luck, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Recovery criteria for the Sonoran pronghorn calls for a second population to be established in the U.S. and the current population to number at least 300 individuals, or for the current population to reach a size that will promote a stable population. Multiple populations are more desirable than a single population because they prevent a single regional catastrophic event like disease or a high predation rate from causing the entire species to become a memory.
It was really quite exciting when how smoothly this went, how choreographed. We'd worked out our plans on who was going to do what, and it all came together and worked really well.
Whether you prefer lakes, streams, creeks, or urban fishing, a year-long season and a wide variety of sport fish species provide Arizonans with plenty of great fishing opportunities. Taking aquatic wildlife from public waters requires a valid fishing license, except for residents or non-residents under the age of 14. Lake levels and river flow are tested by Arizona Game and Fish Department personnel prior to fish stocking. The fish stocked in the urban lakes of Arizona are not grown in state hatcheries but purchased from private fish farmers. Channel catfish and hybrid sunfish are being delivered all the way from fish farms in Arkansas. Rainbow trout are grown and delivered from sources in Colorado.
For all of our 20 urban lakes, we're bringing in close to 6,000 pounds of rainbow trout. So that's close to about 5,000 to 8,000 fish, depending if we get a lot of big ones in one load or not. But about 1 out of every 4 of those fish is going to be a whopper.
These trout stockings focus on fishing as a family form of outdoor recreation and inform anglers about urban fishing programs.
When we were stocking those hybrid sunfish, they have a bigger mouth and they could probably take it better than the bluegill we put in this last time.
I caught about a 4-pounder out here. So
that's nice. This year?
No, it was actually the end of last year.
Right.
End of last year, I caught it in here. I was very lucky, but I do a lot of catch and release, so he's back in here somewhere.
Participating lakes are identified by signs posted at each park. Check for lake locations, park hours, regulations, and all kinds of fishing information at Arizona Game and Fish Department. The program provides convenient, affordable, accessible, and fun fishing opportunities for anglers of all ages and abilities.
I heard that they're having the incentive stocking this weekend, and I can't wait. It's pretty exciting. I like how they stock it with some trout, and during the summer months they stock it with some catfish, and pretty good catfish. I have had some really good luck with this urban program.
These specially designated program lakes are stocked with healthy, catchable fish on an every other week basis throughout most of the year. Farm-raised channel catfish are stocked from mid-March through early July and from late September through mid-November. Rainbow trout are stocked from mid-November to March. Sunfish are stocked 2 times during the year, in May and November. There are no fish stocking schedules between July 10th and September 20th due to high lake temperature conditions and the high risk of transporting fish this time of year.
Now, most of these fish on average weigh between 1/2 pound and 3/4 pound for a normal stocking, and we have quite a few of these that are in the 1 to 3 pound range and anywhere from 13 to 18 inches long. There's some whoppers in there.
Boy, there's some nice big ones in there.
In addition to catching healthy, delicious trout and catfish, anglers benefit socially by spending time with friends and family while relaxing along the shores of a sparkling lake in a comfortable, safe park setting. Fish caught at all urban lakes are fun to catch and safe to eat.
I'm fishing, which is something I do on a regular basis. I come to this one and I go to Lake Pleasant and I go to Cortez and Desert West, and I fish pretty much every day. This lake is the closest one to my home, and I usually spend about 2 hours every day right here.
Arizona's fish and wildlife belong to all of us, so when someone takes over their limit, it's like taking fish off your hook and putting it on theirs. Bag and possession limits are designed to give everyone an equal chance. Open to the public department-sponsored fishing programs will have sport fishing instructors available to provide instructions and answer your questions about fishing. The department will also have available for loan to the public on a first-come, first-served basis rods and reels and a limited supply of bait. Arizona's urban fishing program is recognized nationally as one of the best in the country. There are now a total of 20 lakes in the program located in 11 cities. These lakes are intensely stocked from 20 to 24 times per year with trout, catfish, and sunfish. More lakes are expected to join the program over the next few years. An urban fishing program bulletin is prepared every 2 weeks with stocking information, fishing reports, and other timely updates. Please contact the Arizona Game and Fish Department for more information.
It makes sense that birds, especially birds of prey, like to land on the tallest thing around. In Arizona, all too often that thing is a power pole, which can be a risky place to perch.
Each one of those conductors, when they're hot, will have 7.2 thousand volts running through it, so that's a pretty sizable amount.
The unfortunate truth is, birds can get hurt or even killed on power lines.
Now most birds can sit on poles or wires and they don't get harmed at all, but it's when their wings would touch two wires they can be injured.
And many do get hurt. We have no exact figure of how many get electrocuted, but we do know thousands of raptors alone, like hawks and owls, are killed each year.
The problem with birds and power lines has been around since the first power line went up in the late 1800s. In fact, there are papers published from that time on and in the 1920s. So we've known about it for quite a while. What's happened, though, is the number of poles over time has just increased over and over and over and kept increasing. And we're to the point now that there are so many lines around that it can be a significant problem to certain populations of raptors that it can be probably the most significant issue that they face in certain environments.
Wildlife rehabilitators know how big a problem this is. For example, Sandy Kate, the coordinator for the Arizona Game and Fish Department's Wildlife Center at Adobe Mountain, travels to classrooms and big events to teach people about electrocuted birds and other birds like this great horned owl that have suffered an electrical shock.
This bird we call Sparky, and that's because of his initial injury, and that is why he came in, because he was actually electrocuted on a power pole and part of his wing actually blew off at the time that he received that injury. And we've had this bird since 1999, so we've had him going on approximately 5 years now. And he is our ambassador when we talk about electrocutions and power poles and how the public can get involved to help us to help the animals by notifying power companies when they perceive that there might be a problem pole where a bird might be injured.
And the electrocution problem is receiving some attention. Since the 1970s, we've started working on how to protect birds. Some local utility companies even have a special program to address the problem.
The goal of our wildlife protection program is to reduce the risk of injury to wildlife and prevent them and make our poles as safe as possible. We recognize that our poles, as I said earlier, are the tallest things out here. They are going to migrate to our poles, they are going to use our poles, and we just need to make sure that we can keep them as safe as possible.
APS, Arizona's largest electric utility company, is already doing a lot to make a difference.
As part of our new construction, we do make sure our power lines are wildlife friendly. We use covered wire, we cover the insulators, transformers, and anything that would be a potential contact for wildlife.
APS has also been retrofitting existing poles in order to make them safer for birds. Crews are especially concerned when a nest is located on a power pole. You can help with this problem.
If anybody does see a situation where large birds like hawks or anything of that size, hawks, eagles, owls, any of the larger birds are using poles, either nesting on poles or congregating on them or just habitually using those poles, and they think it's a potential problem, they should call the utility company that operates those poles and report the problem.
Your call to the company can start a chain reaction that includes wildlife rehabilitation experts, people interested in helping to protect these beautiful birds.
Okay, when a nest is reported, APS goes out, we go with them as Liberty Wildlife because we provide kind of the biological input into this formula. And we go out and look at the nest and we figure out, determine what species are there, and what measures can be taken to protect those species, and also whether or not anything needs to be done at all. Some of them are not in danger, and so we leave those alone.
On this particular day, 2 biologists and other staff from Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation in Scottsdale are on hand to provide guidance as APS crews go through a complex process to move a hawk's nest out of harm's way.
This particular nest, we have red-tailed hawks that are using one of our transformers as a nest, and we just want to minimize the risk of them making power line contact and also for service reliability to our customers.
The APS crews cut the electricity to the section of wires they have to work on. Then they will move the nest to a safer, lower location on the power pole, where the birds are much less likely to come into contact with any dangerous equipment.
It can be pretty tricky getting them out, you know. You have to really become creative, and I'm amazed at sometimes where I've seen these birds, hawks, ravens, whatever.
2 adult red-tailed hawks fly overhead, watching and calling as they wonder what is happening to their home. Meantime, the APS crews get a look at something special inside the nest they're about to move.
It's 3 little babies. They're approximately 2, 5, and 7 days old.
APS staffers maneuver into position to prepare to move the nest. The tricky procedure requires them to slide a board underneath it before they can lower it to the ground. Meantime, the baby hawks are placed into a small pet carrier and taken to the ground for care. Workers from Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation tend to the chicks once they reach the bottom.
They look great.
The wildlife workers give the baby hawks a full examination.
He's still got his egg tooth.
They weigh the babies and write down their vital statistics.
That's the big one?
Yeah.
They also make sure the baby hawks have enough nutrition.
If they need fluids, we give them fluids. There's one of the younger ones that we actually gave subcutaneous fluids to. And there was a rat that was in the nest, supplied by the mom. Since they're going to be down for a while, we cut the pieces apart and actually fed them. Now they're just kind of on heat in a dark, quiet place.
The baby hawks are kept in a cooler that's heated with a heating pad to the right temperature for their bodies, while they wait to be reunited with mom and dad in their newly moved nest. At the same time, the APS workers carefully work to place the nest onto a supportive platform that's specially designed just for this purpose.
It's fully non-conductive material. It's made out of fiberglass and plastic, and it has a lot of ventilation. It's a grating system all around the nest, so there's a lot of airflow, and it's also very versatile. It can be used in a lot of different situations, so we're really pleased with the design.
APS crews also insulate and reconfigure equipment to provide clearance for the hawks when they come back. Wildlife workers notice how important the lineman's work is.
It never ceases to amaze me. First of all, I have so much respect for the job that they are doing. This particular nest move, they took an outage, which means the equipment is not live at this time, but that's not usually the case. Usually these linemen are up there and they are doing all this work to help these animals, and it's a dangerous situation. I mean, there's a lot of electricity running through those lines, and I have just the most tremendous respect for the job that they're doing.
The nest and its new platform are raised off the ground and carefully put into place. When all is determined to be secure, the baby hawks are brought back up and placed back into the nest.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. We just have one more part to go, making sure the parents come back.
And it looks good for both the babies and the parents. Everyone involved with this nest move feels good about the end result.
Today we came out here and took a hazardous situation and we made it better.
It's another success for both APS and Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation in a string of about a half-dozen nest moves that have all worked out well. There are high hopes this process will be used by others in the future.
I hope it catches on. I hope that somehow or another throughout the United States that, you know, where they have these problems and everything, that we start getting interactive and create a good viable program for how to relocate nests and how to wire them down, you know, strap them down to a nice platform, what kind of insulation is going to work, you know, so they don't hurt themselves after we're gone.
And wildlife rehabilitators are noticing a difference, including Sandy Kate at the Arizona Game and Fish Department's Wildlife Center at Adobe Mountain.
Most definitely. I would say over the past 7 years, we've seen a huge decrease.
Sandy says this is a good, positive effort by utility companies and by the public.
We can have electricity for lighting and cooking and heat and cooling and all those types of things, but we owe it to these animals to make sure that with that equipment we put out there, that we try to do the best so that they don't suffer because of things that we put out there for human convenience.
For more information on anything you've seen on our show, go to our website, azgfd.gov.